I spend the first half of my clients' lives begging them to save more, right? Pensions, ISA, compound interest. I'm practically on my knees telling people, please just put a little bit more away. But then something very weird happens when they hit a very specific time in their journey. My entire job flips. I'm sitting across from these successful, exhausted people staring at spreadsheets, and I'm literally begging them to stop saving. And they look at me like I've lost it, because they have been told their whole lives that saving is good. More money equals more security. But here's the thing that nobody talks about. There is a point where saving money, more money, stops making a difference and actually starts stealing your life. So today, I'm going to show you exactly how to find that point. And by the end of this video, you'll know the exact number that tells you when you can stop saving and start actually spending your money without guilt. Okay, so to understand when you should stop saving, you need to understand this core concept first. Your wealth is built by two completely different engines. Engine number one is you, your job, your salary, the money that you physically put into your pension or savings each month. You know this one, obviously, this is what everyone focuses on. But here's the engine that actually nobody talks about, engine number two. This is your money working for you, compound growth. As your pot gets bigger, the investments and the money themselves start earning returns. And those returns start earning returns. It's like a snowball rolling downhill. Super slow at first, but then it picks up a kind of speed of its own. And here's something crazy. If you invest for 30 years, more than, the majority of what you end up with didn't come from the money that you put in. Somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of it, that is from your money growing on its own without any of your help. By the way, if stuff like this is new to you, I send out a free weekly email where I break things down like this every single week. 15 years of helping people build wealth, boiled into usually one big strategy per week. Links in the description if you want in. Right, so back to those two engines. For the first 15, 20 years, engine one does all the heavy lifting, as we said. You are the workhorse. But if you've been consistent, something incredible happens. Engine number two starts to wake up. It starts pulling more weight than you ever could. And here's what does my head in after years of doing this. Most people never notice when engine number two has taken over. They just keep grinding away, right? Like shoveling like coal into engine number one until the day they die. They never realize the machine is running on its own. And if that's you, if you're still skipping holidays, stressing about every purchase when your money's already doing the work, you might be throwing away years of your life for absolutely nothing. So the question then becomes, how do you actually know when engine number two has taken over? When do you stop shoveling? Because the exact age to stop saving isn't some arbitrary number like 55 or 60 or 65. It's not a birthday. It's a mathematical milestone that I call the handoff stage. And before you think it's complicated, it's not. It's way, way simpler than you think. The handoff stage is the moment that your money is growing at least 2 to 3 times faster each year than anything you could save by way of your payslip and paycheck, right? Let me try and make this real for you. So say you have got a pension and an ISA pot of £500,000. Now, historically, a diversified portfolio of shares, bonds, property spread across the world grows at roughly 7% a year on average. Let's just take a rough figure. 7% of 500,000 is £35,000. So if your money, in this case, your money is generating £35,000 a year just by sitting there. Now, of course, that's before inflation, so real terms is probably more like 5%, but even so, it's still massively outpacing anything you could save. I mean, really think about that for a second. 35 grand a year while you sleep, while you're on holiday, while you're stuck in traffic on the M25. It doesn't care. It just keeps growing. This is the magic of this sort of approach. Meanwhile, you're painfully budgeting. You're cutting back on holidays. You're checking your bank balance before every meal out to scrape together, £10,000 to put in? Your portfolio is now working 3.5 times harder than you are. Your £10,000, it's basically just almost like a rounding error at this point. All that stress, all that sacrifice, all those evenings you spent worrying instead of living for a contribution to your portfolio that it could earn in a few months without you lifting a finger. And this is the handoff. And continuing to grind yourself down for a few extra percent. It's like carrying a bucket of water to the river that's already flooding. But what do you actually do about it? Okay, so what you need to do is find your coast number. Once you understand the handoff, you can work out one single number, your coast number, that tells you exactly when you're done saving. Forever. Think of it like cycling up a steep hill, right? You're pedaling hard for years, your legs are burning, but then suddenly you reach the top and the road tips downhill. You can stop pedaling completely and just roll all the way to your destination. Now, your coast number is the top of that hill, the exact amount where in your pension, you never actually have to put another penny in. Your money would grow to hit your retirement goal on its own, even if you just got out of its own way. So let me again give you another proper example. Say that you are currently 50 and you want to retire at age 60 with a pot of 800,000. And you currently have a pot of £400,000 invested. Now, at a reasonable growth rate, again, 7%, let's say, that 400,000 basically nearly doubles. You'd end up with close to £790,000. Now, obviously, this is all based on a lot of assumptions, but the point is that even though the market's bumpy over that period of time, over 10-year stretches, again, a reasonable mix of investments within your pension has always bounced back, and it will typically give you that return over that period of time. So give or take, you're basically there. That is your coast number. You've reached the top of the hill. And this is the part where most people miss, because once you hit your coast number, your entire relationship with work and contributions and everything else changes. You still need to earn enough to cover your bills, your rent, your food, your holidays, your day-to-days. But you can almost completely stop saving for the future. Like, theoretically, you could just stop. No more guilt. No more, I should be putting more away. It's kind of done. Now, as a financial advisor, sounds scary to me, right? It sounds like counterintuitive, but the maths tells us that's the truth. So I had this one client who hit her coast number, I think at 51, something like that. And it was great because she really embraced it. She dropped to 3 days a week, I think, and started picking her kids up from school, not putting so much pressure on herself. And she just told me that the time that she spent with her family was way, way more valuable. In fact, she told me that her daughter actually started talking to her on the walks home from school. And she hadn't had that for years. So it's not just fine. It's actually something that is really, really important and really, really valuable when you get there. That's what a coast number buys you. Not stuff. Time. Time that you can never get back. Remember how I said I ended up begging people to stop saving. That's exactly why. Because it allows you the ability to know that you've ticked off your future goal and still live for today. Now, I just want to quickly show you how you can actually find essentially how you can figure out how much you'll actually need in your pot to retire on the level of income that you actually want. So I've got a couple of apps here that I'm going to show you and walk you through that will give you that so you can get your number, so you can figure out your growth number essentially. But These two apps are things that you can download for free. They're in the link in the description below. So grab a copy of them now and we'll jump over and we'll go from there. See you in a sec. Okay, so first and foremost, here is the thing that is going to tell you essentially what amount of pot, what end value fund, we mentioned it before, that 800,000, you'll actually need to give you the income that you want. So this is a really, really useful retirement targeting app that I've got. Again, download it in the description for free. Now, for the purposes of this, ignore all this other stuff for the time being. What I want you to focus on is thinking about what your desired annual income would be in retirement. So let's say if you wanted to retire on £60,000 a year, you need a pot of £1.5 million. Quite scary, really. But for this example, what we're going to do is we're going to say that we want £32,000 per year, ignoring like tax and things like that for the time being. This is just for illustration. So we know that we want £32,000. In order to achieve that, we need a target pot value of £800,000. So that's that example we used earlier. Now, once you've got your pot value, so to speak, that's your target value. What you then want to do is jump across to this app. This is another app, again, download it in the description below, called the Savings Thermostat. Now, what this essentially tells you is based on what you currently have and the target value of where you need to be and your monthly savings rate, are you ahead, behind, all those sorts of stuff. So essentially the key point here is we can use this to understand where you are in your coast level. So here we go. Let's say we've got that target value here of £800,000. Let's say the example was 400, wasn't it? So let's go 400,000. Let's assume 0 monthly savings rate. So that assumes that coast rate of not putting anything else in there. Let's use the example of, it was 10 years, wasn't it? So we need to put 2036 in there of when we want to retire. And I think the rate of return was 7%, wasn't it? Yeah. So again, what this is saying here is I've currently got 400. I want to get to 800 because again, that's the £32,000 a year pot that you'll need to get 32 grand a year. I want to do that in 10 years time, roughly. It's the 28th of February today, 27th of February. And we're assuming a 7% return. Now, it's going to throw up a little bit of a weird outcome, but let's update the thermostat. Now, it is going to tell you here that this is behind. It's a little quirk of the system when you put 0 in the monthly savings rate. But what you're going to see is the AI Financial Insight has basically projected that you will be as near as, damn it, £800,000 at the point in which you wanted to be. So essentially, even though it says behind, I'll explain that in a minute, you have essentially reached your coast figure here. So that works really, really well. So ironically, what's it saying here in terms of the AI feedback? So a monthly contribution of £5 is required. Okay, so let's say £5 in there, update the thermostat, bang on track. Okay, so, it's not moved the needle at all, but this is a really, really good tool for essentially using that for things like this. So let's go back, for instance, and say 0. If the fund value today was 500,000 and we updated it, again, we're well ahead. We're absolutely well ahead. So what you want to do is put where you are currently. We'll wait for the little AI insight to generate. Again, it's telling us that we're going to have £1 million in 10 years, essentially. If we start with £500,000 today, virtually doubles all the time. So use that to find out where you currently are and find out the gap via the AI insight below as to what gap you either have or don't have in order to meet that goal. As soon as that says 0, effectively you've hit your coast number and you can start essentially not worrying about putting big contributions in there because it's kind of all done for you. So again, those two apps, they're brilliant bits of kit. Download them for free in the link below and use them to help for your own situation. So the question is, if it was all that obvious, then why hasn't everybody just done this? Okay. Now, the reason I believe is that saving and getting into this habit is an unbelievably hard habit to break. I think a lot of people think, oh, I can't get a good habit of saving. But actually, once you get into it, it's really hard to stop. And this, honestly, is something that frustrates me more than almost anything that I deal with. So, again, I had this client, let's call him David, right, for the argument of this. He's 58 years old. He was like a senior manager at a big firm, but he was completely burnt out. And he would always come to me looking like grey and exhausted, talking about like how he couldn't sleep, how he dreaded Mondays, how he hadn't taken a proper holiday in like 3 years. But when I showed him these numbers, that he'd already hit his coast number, that he could ease off, he goes, yeah, but maybe just one more year, just to kind of pad it out a little bit, just to be secure. And I get that. But one more year syndrome is very real and it is everywhere. And if you're watching this thinking, yeah, but my situation is different, that is exactly what everyone says. So I showed him the maths, and this is the bit that usually shuts people up. He wanted to grind out one more miserable year to save an extra, I think it was £30,000 into his pension. Fair enough. Now, that sounds like a hell of a lot of money, decent chunk of money, right? But here's the reality. There is a common rule in retirement planning that you can safely take out about 4% of your pot each year. So that 30,000, it only gives him an extra £1,200 a year. That is £100 a month. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. £100 a month. He was going to trade 2,000 hours of his healthiest, most active years in a job that was making him mentally ill for an extra £100 a month when he's 65. 2,000 hours. That's 6 months of long weekends with the grandkids. That's learning to sail. That's a whole life that he wasn't living. And I looked at him and I just went, David, mate, this £100 a month, what is it actually costing you right now? And I remember at the time he went quiet for so long because it was so counter to what he'd actually thought he was going to do. And he goes, well, when you put it like that, and I think he basically retired that year. Look, it's like having a garden full of apple trees and still going to bloody Waitrose every week to buy apples. The trees are producing more than you can eat. You don't need more trees. Stop buying apples and start eating them. Now, I know a financial advisor telling you to stop saving sounds like a dentist telling you to stop to eat more sweets, right? But after watching clients like David waste their best years chasing numbers they don't need, this is the hill that I'll die on. So please, tonight, go check your pension balance, download those apps that I showed you in the link below, work out your coast number. You might be way closer than you think. Now, you're all sorted, right? Well, no, because everything I've just shown you falls apart completely if your pension isn't actually growing properly in the first place. And this is the thing that catches nearly everybody out. Over 90% of people are still sitting in their pension's default fund. And most of them, and for most people, that is completely not the right one, which is why you really need to watch this video here next, because you're potentially earning a fraction of what you should within your pension. If your money isn't growing like it should, you'll never reach your coast number. So give it a click and I'll show you exactly what's going on and how to fix it today.